For most of human history, power was not subtle. It announced itself loudly, violently, and without apology. Kings ruled because they could take what they wanted. Empires survived because they could extract food, labor, and loyalty by force. If people resisted, punishment followed. Control was visible, and it was expensive. Armies had to be fed. Borders had to be defended. Rebellions had to be crushed. Every act of dominance required energy, resources, and risk. This kind of power worked, but it didn't scale well. Modern governments do not rule this way anymore. Not because violence disappeared, but because it became inefficient. The most stable form of control is not fear. It is dependence. Today, people are taught to believe that governments want them to succeed, that prosperity is a shared goal, that growth benefits everyone, that stability means alignment between the state and the citizen. This belief isn't false. It's incomplete. Governments do not want citizens to be poor. Widespread poverty creates instability. It breeds crime. It erodes legitimacy. It invites revolt. But governments also do not want citizens to be financially independent. What they need is a far narrower condition. More precise, more manageable. They need populations that are productive enough to sustain the system, but constrained enough not to challenge it. Not starving, not free, somewhere in between. To understand why, you have to stop thinking about money as a personal matter and start seeing it as a structural one. Money is not just how people buy things. It is how time is controlled, how risk is distributed, how obedience is maintained without force. A person with savings behaves differently from a person without them. This difference is not ideological. It is mechanical. Savings buy time. Time buys options. Options buy refusal. A citizen who can survive 6 months without income can say no to bad jobs, to unfair conditions, to political pressure. A citizen who lives paycheck to paycheck cannot. They need continuity more than justice, predictability more than reform, stability more than truth. This distinction matters more than political beliefs ever could. Historically, governments learned this lesson through failure. Whenever large segments of a population accumulated independent wealth, pressure followed. Not immediately, but inevitably. They funded opposition movements. They resisted taxation. They demanded representation. They challenged authority. So systems adapted, not to eliminate wealth, but to reshape it. In pre-industrial societies, wealth was tangible. Land could be farmed. Livestock could be moved. Food could be stored. If authority collapsed, people could still survive. This was a problem. Modern economies shifted wealth into forms that require constant system participation. Wages replaced harvests. Bank balances replaced stockpiles. Credit replaced reserves. Money became abstract, trackable, regulatable, inflatable. You do not own access to healthcare. You rent it through employment. You do not own housing outright. You service it through debt. You do not own education. You finance it against your future labor. Every pillar of survival became conditional. This wasn't accidental. It was administratively elegant. When survival depends on continuous participation, control becomes passive. No violence required. No ideology needed. Just routine. Employment sits at the center of this structure. A worker without savings is not simply an employee. They are a managed risk. They cannot easily walk away. They cannot strike indefinitely. They cannot endure instability long enough to force change. This is why modern economies prioritize employment numbers over job quality. Why being busy is treated as virtue. Why exhaustion is normalized. The system does not need you fulfilled. It needs you occupied. Idle populations think. Busy populations comply. This is also why time scarcity matters more than income level. A person earning modest wages with free time is dangerous. A person earning more but constantly stressed is ideal. Stress narrows vision. It shortens planning horizons. It shifts focus from systems to survival. Debt amplifies this effect. Debt does not just extract money. It extracts attention. A person in debt organizes their life around payment schedules. They measure success by continuity, not progress. They fear disruption more than injustice. From a governance perspective, debt is stabilizing. It converts citizens into risk-averse participants. And unlike taxes, debt feels voluntary. Student loans are framed as opportunity, mortgages as achievement, consumer credit as convenience, obligation disguised as empowerment. Once normalized, debt becomes invisible, not because it disappears, but because everyone carries it. When constraint is universal, it stops being questioned. Inflation reinforces this quietly. Inflation reduces purchasing power without legislation. It erodes savings without confrontation, punishes restraint and rewards leverage. And because it is technical, blame is diffuse. Prices rise. Vages lack. Explanations become complex. Central banks become shields. Independent. Necessary. Untouchable. Inflation does not need to be extreme, just persistent. A slow leak is better than a rupture. Housing plays a similar role. Home ownership is encouraged, but only through debt. A mortgage ties people to interest rates, property values, and economic stability. A mortgage holder becomes invested in continuity. Falling asset values threaten them personally. They become defenders of the system that sustains prices. Not out of loyalty, out of fear. Notice what forms of wealth are discouraged. Liquid savings lose value. Small-scale self-sufficiency is marginalized. Portable independence is inconvenient. Even entrepreneurship is filtered. You may start a business, but it will rely on platforms, on credit, on regulation, on compliance. True autonomy is rare because it resists management. Historically, moments of real reform followed financial independence, not desperation. Labor movements emerged when workers had enough stability to organize. Civil rights movements gained traction when economic security expanded. Social change followed surplus. So systems adjusted. Benefits became conditional. Support became monitored. Eligibility replaced universality. The appearance of help remained. The reality of dependence deepened. This creates a psychological loop. People are told they are free, but only within constraints. When they hit limits, they blame themselves. They hustle. They optimize. They self-correct. The system does not need to justify itself. People defend it for them. Because questioning the system means questioning personal sacrifice. Lost time, missed opportunities, deferred lives. That realization is expensive. So narratives persist. Work harder. Be responsible. Delay gratification. These narratives are not lies. They are incomplete truths that redirect attention away from structure. Structure is uncomfortable. Structure removes heroes and villains. Structure reveals incentives. And incentives do not care about intention. Crises make this visible. During emergencies, constraints become explicit. Movement is restricted. Counts can be frozen. Rules change overnight. Not because governments suddenly become authoritarian, but because capacity becomes visible. The system always had this power. Crisis merely legitimizes its use. A financially independent population questions necessity. A dependent one complies. After the crisis, powers rarely disappear. They normalize. They integrate. People adapt. This is how control expands without appearing to. Over time, populations internalize limitation. They stop expecting autonomy. They expect management. Politics becomes emotional spectacle. Economics remains technical and insulated. People argue about leaders, not structures. Policies, not incentives. And the system persists regardless of who is elected. This is not corruption. It is continuity. Systems that cannot manage populations collapse. Systems that manage too tightly revolt. The most successful systems maintain controlled discomfort. Enough pressure to motivate. Enough relief to prevent rebellion. Never enough freedom to exit. This balance is not moral. It is mechanical, and it produces a strange outcome. People work more than ever, produce more than ever, and feel less secure than ever. Not because productivity declined, but because surplus is absorbed structurally. More output does not mean more autonomy. It raises expectations. Costs rise. Signals shift. People chase stability and never reach it. This creates exhaustion without rebellion, which is ideal. The system does not fear anger. It fears organization. Anger burns out. Organization requires time, trust, and security. So outrage is tolerated, amplified, monetized, but fragmented. Attention scatters. Energy dissipates. Momentum dies. Bills continue. And many people defend this arrangement passionately, not because it benefits them, but because they have adapted to it. To imagine alternatives would require admitting loss. Lost years, lost agency, lost possibility. That acknowledgement is heavier than debt. So people adjust. They call it adulthood, responsibility, realism. They lower expectations. They trade autonomy for predictability. And the system continues. Governments do not need you broken. They need you engaged, obligated, and cautious. They need you dependent on continuity. They need you to fear disruption more than injustice. Not because they are evil, but because systems that cannot constrain participation collapse. And in the modern world, constraint is financial. History does not show villains. It shows incentives. And incentives shape outcomes whether anyone approves of them or not. Once you see this, the pressure makes sense. the fatigue, the tightness, the feeling that progress never quite arrives. The system is not malfunctioning. It is functioning exactly as designed, not for your freedom, but for its own survival. History has the answers. You just have to be willing to look where they are uncomfortable.
Nothing in this system is accidental, and nothing here requires your approval to continue. If you want to see how power actually works, not how it's explained to you, subscribe. History already wrote the pattern. You're just living inside it.